Okay, so this is not a book that I read in August, but because today is the day that the thing that I'm about to tell you happened, I thought I may as well mention it. I'm going to finish today. When you are watching this, it will have been like 2 days ago, on September the 3rd, I will have finished the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Long, long ago today, he escaped from slavery. So I just thought I would mention that. Without further ado, here are the books that I read in the month of August 2020. August was a pretty chaotic month just because we went back to school, and my particular school is doing hybrid, so half of it's online. Technically, I'm supposed to be doing school right now, but I can do that later. And half of it is in person, so that's been a little interesting. It's worked out for the most part. We have had a couple of COVID cases. The middle school I went to, all of the 6th graders are in quarantine because someone came to school with symptoms, which public safety 101. So with all of that going on, I haven't had as much time to read. That said, I did finish about 11 books this past month, so let's dive right into it. The first book I read this month, I feel like I included in my July wrap-up, but I don't remember, and quite frankly, I don't really love watching myself in videos, so I don't want to go back to that video to find out, so we're going to talk about it here. I read a novel called Understanding the Book of Mormon. I definitely talked about this. Nonetheless, I live in a community that is highly populated by members of the LDS Church, and as a human being with empathy, I like to understand people. I like to know what their backgrounds are, what they believe in, where they're coming from, even if their beliefs don't align with mine. A lot of my friends, in fact, are Mormon or Latter-day Saints, so I just think it's important to understand people as much as you possibly can. I'm also an atheist, but I'm an atheist who thinks that religion is absolutely fascinating, and I always want to learn more, so I read this book to get better acquainted with the community in which I live, and also just to help myself develop as an empathetic human being. Next, okay, oh my goodness, did I talk about this one in July too? The next book I read, I also feel like I already talked about, but maybe not. That is Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall. I adored this book to bits and pieces. If you consider yourself an intersectional feminist, you should read this book. If you don't consider yourself an intersectional feminist, you should probably also read this book, because then you probably will be an intersectional feminist and realize that despite the stigma the term feminist has garnered over the years, it's something that we should all be. For so long, feminism has been equated with white women in the middle class. I fall very neatly into that category. However, true feminism, as it moves forward in the future, needs to be intersectional. Despite past comments I've received, intersectionality is not a secular religious cult. In fact, it merely means that you understand the ways in which people's identities converge and how the convergence of those identities leads to the overall picture of their lives. This book was incredible, not only in its analysis of intersectional feminism and where feminism has historically fallen short, but also in analyzing issues, particularly in the United States, that intersectional feminism has the capacity and potential to help change. Some of my favorite chapters in this book would definitely be the portion about eating disorders among women of color, which are not represented enough or talked about enough in media. I also really appreciated the conversation about food deserts. Everyone should read Hood Feminism. Next, I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. I did a full analysis video of this. If you'd like to check it out, I will have it linked in the description box below and the thing, I think it's like a little eye, maybe it's on the side above. I adored this book. It's, in my opinion, it's a literary fiction novel, although a lot of people do consider it to be a contemporary romance. It follows the relationship between Marianne and Connell, who are living in a small town in Ireland, the ways in which they shape one another's lives for the better, and ultimately, the book in itself is a deep dive into the rarity of true human connection, but the power that those connections can have. I loved it so much. I resonated with the characters on so many levels, and I really enjoyed the way that Sally Rooney dealt with her characters' mental health. It was just a part of them. It didn't dictate their lives or who they are. Next, I read Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne, I think. Absolutely adorable. It made me so happy. I listened to the audiobook version, and they had like sounds of whispering winds and leaves, and it just made me feel very joyful in my heart. However, Where was Tigger? Where was Tigger? Where was Tigger? Maybe Tigger comes like later on in the series because there are a lot of books in the Winnie the Pooh 100 Acre Wood series, but maybe he was just a Disney creation, and I really hope not, because this book was missing Tigger. It was missing Tigger, it was Tigger deficient, and that made me sad. Next, I read a wide variety of essays from the novel Emerging Voices, which is really just an anthology of essays about the American experience. Also has to do with intersectionality. I'm going to go grab it actually so I can tell you the names of specific essays that really impacted me. Okay, I found the essay Black Men and Public Space by Brent Staples to be really impactful, specifically in terms of what's going on in the world right now and what continues to go on specifically in the moment. What is in the news is Portland. Then I read The Myth of the Model Minority by Philip K. Chu, which I thought was incredible. The Take actually just did a video on the model minority trope in film, and I found it incredibly impactful because it's something that I think a lot of people don't notice or pick up on right away, but it is incredibly damaging, and it is a stereotype that really has confined the Asian American community for so long. I also read Twice an Outsider on Being Jewish and a Woman by Vivian Gornick, which I related to a lot because I am Jewish and I am a woman. Some other essays that I read were In U.S. Schools, A War of Words by Richard Bernstein, and Minorities, Alienation and Failure in Academia by Lynn Smith. Both very impactful to me, specifically because I'm trying so hard to get my school to embrace more diverse books in its English classes. Overall, this book was very powerful. I did not get to every essay, but I definitely want to before I give it back to my teacher who lent it to me last year. I know it's not for everyone because it definitely is the epitome of nonfiction, but if you're looking for readings in the American experience from diverse viewpoints, I definitely recommend this one. Then I read We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who is one of my new favorite authors. I'm reading her book Americana for my book club right now, and her writing style in itself is blowing me away. We Should All Be Feminists is relatively short and anecdotal. It discusses a lot of Ngozi Adichie's personal experiences with sexism and gender. It also has a lot to do with intersectionality. Are you seeing a theme here? Because I am definitely seeing a theme. There was one portion in the novel where she was describing her experience with a valet. So she went out to lunch or dinner with a male friend, and a valet parked their car, and when they went to go retrieve their car, she tipped the valet for his service. And he turned to her male friend, not her, but her male friend, and said, "Thank you, sir," because he assumed that her money was from her male friend. Yikes. We should all be feminists. I think I'm going to do a video on feminism in the future in literature and in film, because I think the media has played a crucial part in our modern day understanding of what it means to be a feminist. And just on that topic, I really want to read Bad Feminist, or Feminists, maybe it's plural, by Roxane Gay. That is definitely on my list. Next, I read The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, one of my new favorite authors of all time. I have the mothers on hold. The Vanishing Half follows two twin sisters who are African American but are white passing. One sister ends up marrying a very dark-skinned man. She has a child with this man, but her husband's very abusive, so she ends up leaving him. The other twin completely disconnects herself from her family and her community and decides to live her life as a white woman. This novel deals with not only race, but also colorism in particular. It has to do with class, and in my opinion, it's really an analysis of grief, because these two sisters have lost each other because of social hierarchies, divides, structures, and systems. I've never read anything like this before. I did listen to the audiobook. I loved it. Definitely recommend. I believe I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 on Goodreads, which is phenomenal. So check it out ASAP. It's been all the buzz lately, so you probably heard of it. Next, I read The Tempest by William Shakespeare, and it was hilarious to say the least, because last month I finished The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern, where there's a magician named Prospero, and in The Tempest, there's a magician named Prospero, and that just made me irrationally glad in my heart and soul. This was actually the first volunteer thing that I've completed through Learning Ally, which is a service that creates high-quality audiobooks for kids with learning disabilities and the visually impaired. I was a listener on this particular project. My partner was Jerry. Jerry did a great job narrating this book, and I just provided commentary on places where maybe he tripped up on words or where there was too long of a space or a silence. So not only was I listening to the story, but I was also a part of how the story was being delivered and told, which was really neat. This book was just a lot of fun, and not my favorite Shakespeare, but definitely one that I enjoyed, and it was really cool because I've read probably 4 or 5 of Shakespeare's plays by now, and the more I read, the easier it is, and I just enjoy that so much because it makes me feel accomplished. Because I remember when I read Taming of the Shrew and thought it was very, very hard and miserable. Go watch 10 Things I Hate About You, based on Taming of the Shrew, on Disney Plus now. The third to last book I read this month was Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, aka Shannon McGuire. I did not realize that that was her pseudonym until like 2 days ago, which is pretty lame, but what can I say? This novel, I loved it, but it took me both way too long to read, and it was also just too long in general. However, apart from that, I adored the characters, the concepts, and the execution. This follows a group of people who go out on this giant cruise ship that's funded by a corporation called Imagine to see what is going on in the Challenger Deep. Because, dun dun dun, in years past, they sent out a ship called the Atargatis, full of people from the same corporation, to film a mockumentary about mermaids. Alas, it seems that they found them, but everyone on the crew was eaten and killed, so nobody could report back. The second group that is going into the Challenger Deep and to the Punnett Sound, I think is what it's called, they're a group of scientists trying to figure out if mermaids do exist, if so, what danger they pose to humanity, and really just to learn. That's why they're there. And boy oh boy do they find said mermaids that are actually sirens. It was really neat. The scientific jargon in this book was actually incredibly impressive. It was super clear to me that Shannon McGuire thought out, I'll just say Mira Grant for the sake of not making myself or you confused. Mira Grant did a great job of creating the science behind a fictional species. I thought that was brilliantly executed. Also, the cast of characters, talk about representation. We had twin, biochemists that were also deaf. We had LGBTQ plus rep, an actually fully formed relationship I just adored. We had family, communication, and love. It was so good. I loved the characters. I genuinely fell in love with the majority of them and was either very sad or very happy with their respective fates. You'll have to read it to find out more. Then I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hebert, I think. Cute. This is really the first year that I've dove into the adult romance genre, and it's been really interesting for me because I've learned what I like, what I don't like, and how that impacts my experience with individual novels. It turns out I like emotional connections a lot more than physical ones in books. It's fine. Sex scenes are fine, whatever, but I'd prefer that the characters connect emotionally before physically. That's part of the reason I did not like the novel Red, White, and Royal Blue, even though it's very well loved on BookTube, and I think their rep was great. I just didn't like the relationship, and that ruined the book for me. Get a Life, Chloe Brown is much more 50-50 emotional physical to my preferred 90-10 emotional physical, but I loved it. It worked for me. It was a really good balance. The relationship did move a little bit fast. I saw that in Charlotte's review from Charlotte's Reads, and I agree 100%. That said, I loved the characters. I loved the fact that our main character was struggling with chronic illness, but also had a fully fledged and invigorating and rich life, not only personally, but with her family and a love life. That was awesome. Our main love interest, who is male, is actually suffering in the novel from PTSD, I guess you could say, from a past abusive relationship. That's kind of a rare thing to see specifically in male characters, not only in the romance genre, but at all. So I really loved the amount of depth, complexity, and realism in all of Talia Hebert's characters. Also, the sister relationship between Chloe and her sisters Danny and Eve was on point. I have Take a Hint, Danny Brown on hold at the moment. Lastly, I read Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. Tweet Cute is a retelling of one of my favorite films, which is You've Got Mail, starring Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks in New York in the fall, in bookshops. I mean, come on. Why is no one talking about this movie on BookTube? It's like the epitome of BookTube, if BookTube were a movie. Maybe we'll do a review on that later. In the novel, there are two characters, Jack and Pepper. Their ship name is Pepperjack, and they both have something to do with grilled cheese. It's perfect. Jack's family owns a independent family-run deli in New York, whereas Pepper's family owns a corporate massive fast food titan called Big League Burgers, who has just introduced a grilled cheese to their menu. Unfortunately, it seems as though Big League Burger copied Jack's family's recipe for Grandma's grilled cheese. So they have this huge Twitter feud over it. And they know it's each other. They've talked this out at school. They're having this kind of fun, cute, flirty Twitter feud. But at the same time, they're talking to each other on an app called Weasel. I don't know why it's called Weasel, but why not? They're talking on this other app, and they don't know who the other is, so they're falling in love in real life and on the internet, and it just makes me so happy. Also, this author on her website has a recipe for sex-positive brownies, so you know she's gotta be an instant buy from here on out. Those are all of the books I read in the month of August. I did start a couple more, including The Girl Who Drank the Moon, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, and The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, but those will be included later in my September wrap-up because I just didn't finish them by the 31st. Of the 8th month of the worst year I've ever lived through. I can't say in human history, but it's definitely gonna be up there. I hope you all are staying relatively safe and happy, and I will see you tomorrow for a discussion of what I hope to read in the month of September. Until then, I will say adieu.